Hey everybody, welcome back to the You Should Know podcast. It feels so good to be back in this seat putting out another podcast for you guys. If you're new here or if you haven't already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me get great guests like we have today. Our guest today is, wait, 1 second. I gotta give him the respect he deserves.
Ah!
I gotta give him the respect he deserves. He's a two-time Olympian, the co-host of Not a Sports Show and Sirius XM's Busted Open. It's WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry.
What's going on, Peyton?
Mark, it's an honor to have you here. If you would have told me at 11 years old, whenever I was buying WWE tickets, buying these belts, shirts, if you would have told that kid that I'd be interviewing you in 10 years, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's an honor, and I appreciate you coming on.
Man, I appreciate being on, man. I love to see young journalists and young hosts cut their teeth and build their way up to the top, and you're on the way.
I really appreciate that, and I'm going to get straight into it. As a fan, if these questions are too fangirlish, just let me know. But, coming from a small town in East Texas, being a pure athlete, the world's strongest teenager, I mean, that by itself is crazy. And transitioning into the WWE, going into WWE, you can't just be a athlete. You have to be a performer, an actor, an entertainer. How did you make that transition?
You know what? I was always a clown. When I walked in the room, I never was shy. I was always trying to entertain. So it was pretty natural for me. Uh, I just, I needed an acclimation period to understand what it is I was doing and how to do it. And then after that, the rest is history.
And did you go through a developmental league with the WWE, or was it kind of just like they threw you in the deep end?
Well, they just threw me in. There was no developmental system when I came in. I was the first hired on developmental wrestler. And everybody before me had to go live in a certain territory, wrestle every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then they would travel back and forth and do shows in other states and other places. But yeah, man, I was the first one.
Is it true that whenever you were coming up in the WWE, you were housed with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or y'all were roommates?
Yeah, well, I had an apartment in Connecticut where the office headquarters was. And he came from Canada playing football and didn't have a place to stay, was going to stay in a hotel. And he was like, hey, man, you mind if I sleep on your couch till I get my check? Because he didn't have any money. And I told him, yeah, like, man, you're welcome, man. I got an extra bedroom, man. You can stay there as long as you want to. And we were fast friends, like brothers, and even still.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Like, living with somebody, going towards a common goal, grinding every day to get something, y'all create a different kind of brotherhood and friendship. Do you remember any golden moment from your time living with him?
We had one argument. I like the temperature below 70. So I had the temperature on like 65 or 66 or something like that. And then I wake up in the middle of the night sweating bullets. And I go to the air conditioner and it's like on 75. And I was like, put it back on there, and I go and knock on his door. And he comes to the door all groggy and everything. And I said, man, listen, I know you paying the cable bill, but you're not paying the utilities.
Right.
Leave the air conditioner alone.
That's hilarious.
That was the only time we were like, man, you got it freezing in here. Like that was the only time we ever had like any kind of argument or anything. But outside of that, Dwayne is the most studied person that I ever met. Like he's over prepared for whatever situation he goes into. He's constantly writing notes and very meticulous that way. And I actually learned from that. I felt like, wow, that's pretty damn cool. I'm going to do the same thing.
That's awesome to hear. Like, I feel like a 11-year-old kid right now. Like, it's amazing to hear all this stuff. And going back to that, like, super fan, like, I want to know, like, what happens in the ring and everything. Whenever you're in the ring and someone doesn't like sell your move, is it true that you might give them a little extra to make sure they sell it?
It's called a potato.
Okay, explain that to
Like
me.
if you throw a punch at me and you hit me really hard,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a receipt coming. And a receipt is you're going to receive equally or more than what you gave. And what you do to them is called a potato. Because I guess if you like, just standing there not paying attention and somebody throws a potato at you, it's gonna,
Mm-hmm.
hurt like hell, and it's gonna be kind of surprising.
Right.
And that's kind of what it is. I've thrown a couple and I've received a few, so it balances itself out.
I would hate to receive a potato from you. That seems like that would be a bad experience. Um, doing some research on you and going through the catalog, I saw something that kind of, I don't know, I didn't like to see it, but I mean I understood it because I'm a fan of you. Obviously, respect you a lot. I've been a fan of you since I was a child, and then being in this podcast industry, I respect highly of Joe Rogan, like what he's done for the space. And I saw y'all had a little, I don't know what to call it, maybe a tiff. It wasn't anything too serious, just some exchange of words. It was about 2 years ago, I think. Did y'all ever have a conversation behind the scenes to piece that up, or was it just kind of like, it is what it is? It's just
No,
real.
I've never met Joe Rogan. Um, I respect his work rate and what he's done for podcasting. But during that time, it was a very, very sensitive issue with me. He made comments about Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka had just died the week before. So I was pissed. And um, he belittled pro wrestling. And now, 2 years, 3 years later, I've actually heard him say, you know what, I got a newfound respect for pro wrestling. And he talks positively about pro wrestling, even though it's not his thing. And he looks at it like, you know what, it's not my thing. I'm not into it, but I see and understand what those guys do and girls do. But he wasn't there back then. And I was angry at the fact that he made a comment about Jimmy Superfly Snuka after he had recently died, and I'm a friend of the family. And I love Jimmy. Jimmy was good to me when I first came into pro wrestling, and is rightfully so. I really don't have any beef with Joe Rogan. I don't know him. I just know he made an asinine comment that hurt my feelings, and um, being in radio, I had to hear that, and I was like, man, it's too soon. It was too fresh on my heart, and that's kind of what was the sum of it. But I appreciate the fact that I've heard him say that he don't feel the same way about our industry as he once did. And I mean, I've made mistakes in my life too. So I've said some stuff that can come across as dumb and ignorant, and um, my maturity and the fact that I was uh, more educated to what that is, those things I've been able to work through.
Yeah, and you speak of one of the greats like Jimmy Superfly, and I don't know if you've seen any episodes, but I have a lot of basketball players on this podcast. Just being from my background, that's who I'm connected with, and it's regular in our world to have a top five. Now, I've heard your top five before, but just in case it's changed or anything's new, I want to hear the top five best WWE wrestlers of all time.
The best WWE wrestlers, I mean, the top four is pretty easy. You know, The Undertaker, Ric Flair, um, Hulk Hogan, and Andre the Giant. Pretty easy. But then you have The Rock and Stone Cold, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, um, and probably about another uh, 15 guys that can be in that fifth spot. So, um, I would, I would have to say that, the top four, the Mount Rushmore is easy because those guys earn that spot, those spots, those four spots. But that fifth spot is up for debate.
Right. That's you always got to leave it open. Once you retired from the WWE, and I'll get you out of here. We only got like one or two more. Once you retired from the WWE, you really took the role of mentorship, and I read that you helped Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton out. What is it that you saw in them when they were in the early stages of their career?
Well, I saw talent and the fact that they wanted to be great, that they didn't just want to get on television and make some money. They wanted to be great. They wanted to be remembered. And you can tell when somebody's passionate about something. When they're passionate, you have to support. And I didn't start mentoring when I retired. When I came into the business, the first 7 years, or the first 5 years, I felt like my traveling, learning how to be a pro wrestler was pretty damn difficult. And I didn't get any help because people were worried about me taking their spot. And about 7 years in, I was pretty proficient in everything that was related to pro wrestling. I got it. And I felt like, you know what? When these new guys come in, I'm going to let them know what it is and not keep stuff from them or give them false information or, treat them like, errand boys because they're new. And that resonated with a lot of guys. I mean, I got to see Randy Orton's first day, Batista's first day, Daniel Bryan, like there's guys that are going to be Hall of Famers that I was there to help, direct them and push them along on their first day. So, I take a lot of joy in that.
Yeah, I bet that's a different kind of fulfillment you get mentoring somebody rather than when you were actually in the ring. And to close this out, you're now the co-host of Not a Sports Show and SiriusXM's Busted Open. When did you decide to make the transition into broadcasting?
You know what? I always wanted to, and I was a communications major when I was in Colorado Springs, living at the Olympic Training Facility. I wanted to be a disc jockey. I was going to be the guy that did the Quiet Storm, with Mark Henry, and all of that kind of stuff. So I always had an interest in radio, and I said when I was done, I was still going to do it. And I fostered relationships with a lot of guys that were in sports radio. And the executive director at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs was Charles Davis.
Oh.
And Charles Davis was another guy that, he told me, you have a good voice, man. Like, you ever thought about radio? And I was like, yeah, I'm a communication major. And he was like, no, I'm talking about like how serious you want to be. And he was cutting his teeth at that time. Like that was his other thing, his side thing. And man, he was just a good influence.
Man, that great stories. Truly a legend. You've accomplished so much, and it's an honor to have you on the show. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Man.
Everything you've done
it's
for
not
me.
The last time.
I sure appreciate it, and I hope not. Thank you for everything you've done, past this podcast. Tell them where they can find your shows, Mark.
You know what? You can go on YouTube and look up Not a Sports Show 1. and that's at Nota, Nota Sports, and the number 1. And you can look me up on social media, all things the Mark Henry, at the Mark Henry on everything. And you can hear me on Busted Open. We're on 6 days a week on Sirius XM on channel 156. Fight Nation, you know, we talk about sports and we talk about wrestling and all boxing and the fighting art. So tune in.
Truly a legend, WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry. Thank you so much. This has been a You Should Know podcast. I'll see you guys later. The You Should Know podcast.